It's the Kink Consultant podcast, where we're turning up the heat on all things kink and dating, relationships, and pop culture. So close the door, plug in your headphones, and let's get down to it. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Kink Consultant. I am excited to have this week's guest on. We have Zachary Moore, my former personal trainer from when I lived in New York City. The reason I asked you on is because you piqued my interest.
Yes.
When I was working out with you years ago, you had not totally dove into dating. You were single.
For a little bit of context, so I recently got separated.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And very amicable. My ex, we're super cool. Like, we're cool, no drama, no nothing. We have our sons, we still parent together all the time. But for me, as I've been getting back out into the dating world, it was, one, I haven't dated. And I sound insane for saying this, but for almost 15 years.
That is a long time. Did Tinder even exist when you were single last?
Nothing existed. So it goes to show my knowledge.
Yeah.
So I literally never used the app for anything. And when my now ex and I got together, I was 25, she was 23. We had a good time. There was a lot of good stuff that was there, both, mentally, physically, and emotionally. And let's just put, I'm excited to get back out into the world and see what's up. And you recommended an app that you thought might be a good app for me, Field, as I got into the app. Now, you had recommended it for a little bit of a different reason, and you were right, and I listened, and that's why I did it. For my situation, again, for context, I am very busy throughout the week. I leave my ex's place at around 8:30 once my son is asleep, so my son is my priority. I'm not changing any of that stuff. So I don't have a ton of time to date during the week, and when I'm looking for something that's, a little more, I think casual would be the right term, right? I'm not looking to date anybody seriously. It's not going to be something where I'm trying to get married again. And what you had mentioned was, you were like, there's this app Field, and it started primarily as a kink app, but you can also find individuals who are a little more casual in nature. Yeah. And as I began exploring more for the casual aspect of it, started exploring more of the kink aspect of it too. And I have a friend of mine, and he's gay, and he had said something really interesting, because he had been kind of through a similar situation. He said, when I got out of my long-term relationship, I realized that I did have a kink, and as I wanted to explore other people's kinks and then figure out what mine happened to be if it was in there. And I remember him saying that, and I was like, I think there's kind of a dual aspect to this exploration that might be going on, which is one, just finding something that's a little bit more, casual in all of the right, respectful ways. This isn't supposed to be mean or dirty in a bad way. I remember listening to your stories, and I listened to your podcast, and I think I'm deeply intrigued by the world of kink, if I'm being honest. And I'm very eager to explore it and see what I like and don't like, and I have some ideas. But as I was going through the app, I was like, I got to talk to my girl Amanda. There's a lot of stuff here I don't know, and I need some guidance. So,
did you know you were kinky?
Yeah, I've always known that there's a little bit of something in there, right? What form does that something take, and how far will I explore it? And I'd say I've barely scratched the surface on it, right? But I think I have some ideas in terms of what that might look like.
When you text me about this, I felt like, how had we never talked about this before? I don't think I'd ever asked, are you kinky?
Yeah.
But I also think I had a suspicion that you were, for two reasons. Number one, you were very concerned with the state of my nails and how they'd look when I show up. And that's a very particular thing. And I was like, it's a certain type of energy, right? And I was like, it's not weird. It's just you were particular. And I was like, okay, he has strong opinions. That doesn't mean you're kinky. But paired with piece of evidence number two, I don't remember if you wanted me to work out in between or stretch or definitely use a foam roller, which I was never doing. And I'd show up and you'd ask, did you stretch? And I'd be like, I didn't have time. And you threatened to punish me. And I stopped you mid-sentence. I was like, I enjoy that in my personal life. We're not bringing that here. The way you handled that, you were like, okay. And just no more questions. You were like, all right, we won't do it. I was like, I think this person's dominant. And we talked about so much. I'm shocked we never did this. So
I think part of the reason why we didn't talk about it was wasn't having any sex at the time. All we were talking about was I got to figure out how I do certain aspects of my business so I can make more money, so I can get my own place. How do I navigate this situation in the best possible way so I can remain a good parent? and then get to a point where maybe I get laid before I die of old age again. That would be fantastic.
We talked a lot about you getting laid eventually.
But again, like I was really just focused on like, I am genuinely cool with my ex. We are cool. But when you are in a relationship that needed to be over a long time ago, at least when I got out, I just needed some time to chill. I also just needed some time to get a couple of things together that I had going on. There was a kind of a process. Got on the apps and I needed to feel that out, get a better sense of how all that stuff worked.
Would you identify as dominant?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you know that going into dating?
Yeah. And I think I can tell you a really funny story. So my ex and I, and if anybody ever sees this who knows us, this might get us in trouble. But so we're messing around a little bit and we were trying a couple different things. So I remember when we kind of flipped it a little bit and I was a little more on the sub side. And the first I was like, yeah, just like fucking tie me up. Let's see how this goes. And like she's tying me up and we get like part of the way through and I almost had like a mild panic attack. I was like, get that fucking shit off me. Get it off. I don't like this. And she was like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, stop. We reversed roles and everything was great.
I appreciate you for trying. Good for you. But also, it's not easy. It's not simple to just be tied up. I think a lot of people think, oh, the sub is being lazy. All they have to do is lie there. But like, there's a mental process you have to go through.
It was very interesting for me. I did not expect to react as viscerally as I did. I felt incredibly exposed. It was one of the vulnerable, yeah, and like not in a good way. It felt very exposed, like it was uncomfortable. I felt very powerless. And
there you go.
It was one of the least erotic moments I've had. You know what I mean? Where I was like, this just wasn't for me. But that's why you tried.
I'm glad you tried. Did you really think she was going to hit you? I asked that because paranoia sometimes sets in, even with a trusted partner, of realizing, oh.
No, she was very trustworthy and she wouldn't have done anything like that. So I remember one time, this is another funny story. We were having sex, she was on top and like we're really in it. And I was like, yeah, just fucking slap me. And my ex was strong and she slapped me. She slapped the sex right out of me. I was just like, oh. And I was just like, what the fuck? And she was like, yeah, you like that? You want it again? And then she slapped the shit out of me again. And I was like, I literally got slapped back to reality. And I remember this to this day. I can tell you all like exactly where all the things in the room were and everything. And I was just like, all right, man, just keep your erection, finish this up, just get out of here and never do that.
Finish the mission and then be done.
We're going to finish this up. We're going to finish strong and then we're going to get our shit together.
Damn, this is why negotiation is important beforehand, because we could have avoided this situation for you.
That was in the moment and that was a request from me and I stand by my request. It was awesome.
Some people are into it. Obviously not you.
All right, so then that is a question then, because I'm going on a date with this girl on Friday and on her field app, she talked about, one of the things was Primal. She didn't phrase it, I'm into Primal. It was just in parentheses, like things I'm into, MFM, we know what that is, Primal, some other things. I kind of understood what Primal meant. I mean, I assume I understand, and there's a difference between assuming and knowing. So
I'm glad you approached it that way, but based on the stories you've shared so far, I think that you're going to be fine. It's a type of animalistic type of connection. There's the predator and prey. Do you know which one you are?
Yes.
There you go. I know which one you are too. Okay. It can range from anything from just like nibbling, growling to being pretty rough in the bedroom. I mean, there are primal play parties where literally people are the prey and they go running and a group of predators run after them and get them. Like that's the range. It can be like we've started from nibbling on the ear in bed to actually going to a party where you're running for your life in the woods.
With regards to that second situation, and this is just kind of a question I have in general too about certain aspects of kink, and we can get into this in terms of like, especially if it's more role play, bondage play, that kind of stuff. But again, with minimal experience in this, how does that go from the kink aspect to when it becomes more of the sexual aspect?
That's a really good question, and one that I jokingly say, please never ask me, because it's sort of a duality. There is the kink side, and for some people, it can just be the kink, and then other people, it needs to include sex or be sex. So for some people, they're together as one. For other people, it's two separate things. For the ones who would say it's all one for them, it starts almost like foreplay. Kink is their foreplay, what they need, and it can lead into sex. Where would you fall in that spectrum?
It's a good question. I mean, my aspects of kink when they come out are more during sex. And it's more of a dominant, more physically imposing aspect to it. Again, nothing that's mean or painful in a bad way, but it's from certain positions to certain intensities to just even the way I'm holding the person, certain things that line up in that aspect of it.
Which can be primal, but also there's the bondage side. It sounded like you enjoy tying people up.
I haven't done it enough to have enough data to know whether it's for me or not, but I have enjoyed it in my limited experience with it.
Are you exclusively dating kinky right now, or are you open to vanilla partners as well?
I'm open to the spectrum. I've been much more drawn to trying to find somebody who has a similar situation as I do in terms of like their times and their logistics, with the caveat that understanding that the sexual aspect of this is going to be important.
That's the point for you right now.
Kind of the point. I am also somebody who's very big on like chemistry and vibe, right? Like if I don't have a good vibe with somebody, like I want to get along with the person. I care a lot about the mental and emotional attractions of that person as well. And if that's not there, I don't usually have like a strong sexual attraction to the individual, regardless of what they look like.
Okay, but it starts with looks because you're swiping on an app.
Yes, 100%. Which is also one of the reasons why I'm trying to, I mean, it's 2 degrees outside. We're in New York right now. But it's also one of the reasons why I've been trying to force myself to go out. Because I don't know about you, but like when I'm out, like you really get a sense of somebody's vibe. And for me, again, like I can meet somebody where, let's just say aesthetically, right? Like maybe you wouldn't be the most drawn to this person on an app, but you meet them in real life and you see the way they move, you see the way they talk, you kind of get a feel for their energy and you're like, this is dope. This is cool.
I agree with that, but I actually try and flip that of just when I'm out and about anyway, I look at someone and think if I saw them on an app, I probably wouldn't swipe on them. Let me remember that look and like give someone a second chance on the app, because that's how I'm meeting people.
It's a great
But I'm also not going to go, I'm not 99% of the time, I'm not going to be the person hitting on someone in public.
Right.
I don't know. Are you going up to people?
I have no problem doing it. Like, or I would go up to somebody and like, will have some butterflies in my stomach? Yeah. Will I need a second to like get myself grounded? Yeah. But I'm fine going up to somebody and just making conversation. My experience has been just be, I know this is shocking, but like listen and like have an actual human conversation with somebody and you're usually going to be okay. And I think my experience has been most women just want to make sure you're not a fucking creep. And then at least they'll listen to you for a minute. And then if you give it like, come on, man, like just make some conversation. For
me, I'm specifically looking for someone kinky. Like I can't date vanilla, and that is something I've realized after 2 failed long-term relationships.
Yeah. So for you then, you need like, would you say significant kink and when you say vanilla, that doesn't necessarily mean bland. That just means non-kinky to you, correct?
Exactly. There is nothing wrong with vanilla. For a lot of people, it's not bland. I've had very passionate vanilla sex, but if I'm not with someone who is going to tie me up or honestly say some pretty fucked up shit, I'm probably not going to long-term be excited by them.
That's an important point, again, for me, because as I'm embarking upon this, I have ideas of where I may fall, but I may not be kinky enough to meet someone else's criteria.
Yeah, well, that brings up a good point. Has anyone out the gate, when you've messaged them, brought up their own kinks and been like, are you into this? Can you be into this?
I messaged with this one girl, beautiful chick who was very into rope play, which I knew was like a lot of like kind of heavy rope play. And she was like, how's your experience with this? And I was upfront. I was like, listen, I don't have a ton of experience with this, but I am a eager and fantastic student and I'm ready to learn if you're ready to teach. And she was very nice. She was like, it's a great attitude, but I need a pro.
With rope, it takes years. I assume she means shibari, which is, it's an art form almost of tying people up. And it takes years of experience. I took a class a few months ago, a shibari class. My attempt was awful. Like it was my first attempt, but it just showed like, oh, wow.
I mean, this is like an actual compliment. Like some of those photos that she had, she looked like genuinely talented at the things that she was doing. Like she had worked on her craft. She knew what was up.
Well, was she tied up or doing the tying?
She was tied up.
So getting into those positions would
Yeah.
actually be really difficult. I'm actually talking to someone right now, and I was like, I'm not very flexible. He's like, I think you should start stretching. So I'm stretching. Okay, so you have the rope person, you have the primal person who put on their profile that they were primal. What else are you seeing out there that piques your interest?
Yeah, so I connected with this one girl who was a little bit on the younger side. The big thing that she was looking for was daddy's little girl. And I would love to
So
dive in.
dominant, hold on.
Yeah,
What you looking for? Dominant daddy, little girl, DDLG.
DLG, yeah.
I have, before you say one more word, I have to ask you, how did she bring that up?
It's in her profile.
So she puts
Yeah.
it out there.
As soon as we matched, I looked it up, obviously.
You say obviously, but let me tell you from the opposite side where I put emoji code in and different, not everyone looks it up.
Interesting. No, I immediately looked it up. I mean, at first I was like, whoa, that seems real weird. And then I dove into it a lot more and I was like, oh no, this seems super cool.
As a dad, your gut reaction was like, that seems weird because you're a dad?
Yeah, 100%. Coming at this without having any knowledge in terms of what it was, I was like, oh, is there an incestuous aspect to this? Is there going to be something weird where she wants me to like pretend I'm her father while we're having sex?
Oh.
That I would not be comfortable with for a lot of reasons.
Thank you for bringing those things up, though. That's really good because those are really common misconceptions that I forget about when I'm this deep into
Right.
kink in general. You're right. People do think that.
And you're right, because like I'm not that deep into this world, right? So for me, what's interesting is like learning some of these aspects. And then as I did a little more research on it, it actually seemed, this is gonna sound weird, but almost like a very kind of dom sub.
It's a caretaker role.
So I think some of my questions for you, and I actually asked this to her too. I asked her, I was like, hey, for your DDLG component of this, is this more in the bedroom? Is this more out of the bedroom? Do they blend together? I think I said, I'd love to know more about how this works for you so I can make sure that I'm delivering this in a way that works best for you. But in your experience, is that more out of the bedroom, in the bedroom? I'm assuming it kind of blends together with the two.
So last week's episode, I was actually talking to someone who's throwing a party in Vegas called Dirty Daddy's Party Room in Vegas, right? We talked about there's such a big spectrum with this type of play. So even if it's DDLG, it can be in the bedroom, it can be 24/7. It doesn't always have to include any type of age play. Some people just like the term daddy as an honorific and they like being called a little girl, but in their head, there's no age play involved at all. And for people like that, it might be more just in the bedroom as opposed to outside. And for very few people, is it 24/7 all the time? But sometimes that dynamic exists throughout the relationship. So it's sort of dip in and out of it. There's never a direct answer to a question like that because it's like it depends on the people. So do you know if she was into the age play aspect of it?
Yeah, because she specifically put it on her profile. And the girl I'm going out with on Friday specifically put in her profile age play. So can we dive into that a little bit more? Can you explain some of those dynamics to me a little bit?
Yeah, so age play can exist where someone is basically just playing an age, or in their head, they are interested in playing an age that isn't their own age, right? And it doesn't mean that they're regressing necessarily back to that age, but they indulge in playing like a child. And for some people, that's actually it can be any age, usually younger than what they actually are. I've never heard of anyone playing anyone older, but for example, there's middles who are maybe more of those teenage years. There's a whole chart of different ages of what people are, but it's different for everyone. Some people say they're into age play and they're really into being super young, like toddler level. They might dress like someone who's a toddler. I have never once talked about this on Instagram or TikTok because it is the most divisive thing ever.
There's a strong element within me that I can feel is like kind of resistant, uncomfortable with this. My dirty side is like, hey, you want to pretend you're 16? Fucking let's party. You want to go any lower than that? Like,
and that's totally fair. It's about your own comfort level, which it's just really difficult. Then when I'm trying to explain it, there are people who, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but ABDL, adult baby diaper lover, there are people who love to be in diapers. Sometimes they just like to wear them. Sometimes they like to use them and be changed. It's such a range. And then there are a lot of arguments online about age play and whether it's regression or just play.
when I was diving into it and I started reading more about this, I was also candidly a little bit concerned if there would be a psychological component there that was, how do I phrase this? I was concerned about some psychological instability and about some stuff that might be psychologically unhealthy. In order for me to find any sort of arousal, it has to come from a place of comfort, obviously. Like the idea of doing something, if the person was like, oh, I want to pretend I'm like 8 or 9, like, I would be so zero. I can't do that, right?
Okay, age play, here's where it's at. Age play is pretending to be a certain age. And you do not have to be okay with someone pretending to be 6 years old. That is not your thing. It sounds like you're okay with someone pretending to be a teenager, like in high school. It sounds like the age maybe you started being sexually active, you're kind of okay with.
Yeah.
And then
Let's just so anybody watching, we're talking like 16, 17, okay? And for the record, for anybody watching, I'm not having sex with any 16 or 17-year-olds.
that's
Okay?
the other
It's
thing.
not happening either.
Thank you for like saying these things, because age play is not actually having sex with anyone who is underage. It's people pretending to be those ages. And there is no shame in any different age. It's about our own personal comfort level. That said, one of the things I want to highlight that this definitely isn't is regression. This isn't someone, when you're doing age play, you're really just like, I'm playing pretend, sort of like I'm pretending to be the handyman here to fix your fridge. You're not actually going to take a fridge apart during that role play. With age play, you're just pretending to be a different age than you are, and it's sort of this elaborate role play.
Yeah.
It is not the person regressing back to that age and really losing themselves in that as a like to cope with things. It's not
Okay.
something that is therapy related, not role play. So you really, when you're talking age play, you want to make sure you're in that role play space. Did this person seem like they wanted to be in the role play space?
Yeah, I don't know yet. Pulling it up right now. I said I'd love to learn more about what you're looking for here and see if we have a good vibe / chemistry. And she was like, in terms of what I'm looking for, it's pretty much exactly what I wrote in my bio, to be honest. Dating without intention, based on what feels right with that person. Ideally looking for something long term, but don't mind taking my time. And I've never been big on life's rules, timelines, and that kind of stuff. She didn't expand into any of her personal kinks. On her profile, she said, I'm open to explore, but also roughly know what I do like, e.g., age gap. So, oh shit, she said age gap, not age play. So that's maybe different. Praise, primal, bondage, MFM, and what I don't like, example, punishments, pain for pain's sake. Not quite unexperienced, but some of these acronyms can be indecipherable. That was her thing. This other girl, yeah, the first girl, the 21-year-old, said mostly into DDLG and age play. So a little different than age gap, I guess.
Yeah, so that was the younger girl who you've sort of stopped talking to as much. But yeah, and you don't know details of what age range.
No.
I really want to find that chart. My girlfriend sent it to me because similar to you, I'm like, yeah, I can play 16, but that's pretty much as low as it goes. And even then it's more the fact that I like a schoolgirl outfit. Back when I worked at the dungeon, that schoolgirl outfit was a big money maker. But okay, age play, and just while we're on it, can come in different ranges. You've already identified your cutoff point of like, oh, and that happens. You can be like, I don't really age play below 16. Sometimes younger people or if someone wants to age play younger, they might enjoy stuffed animals, coloring, arts and crafts, being like read a bedtime story and put to bed. It's a range. It's just not for you.
I can't do anything that I would do with my son. That's not gonna fly.
Okay, that's a really good boundary. And that is something that I always wonder about with parents, because I'm dating too. I date people who have kids, and that boundary for some people exists of like, no, you cannot call me daddy. I cannot take that. And then other people are more okay with it.
Yeah, the daddy component, I don't know.
I wonder if it's also different because you have a son.
Oh, a
Yeah.
million percent. I thought about that. I was like, if I have a daughter and I heard that, I'd probably be like, nope.
Yeah, it just would
Or
change.
no. I think that carries a little more intensity in terms of the position.
It doesn't have to though. Honorifics can be made up, and they're not just for the dominant role. Baby
Yeah.
girl. Has anything really thrown you in the dating world right now?
No, not yet. I haven't been out enough, to be honest with you. I haven't gotten the reps in yet where I'm like, oh shit, that threw me a little bit.
Now I'm wondering, I really like to test different things out on my dating profiles, like saying different things, putting
Yeah.
stuff in there. You sound really open-minded about the DDLG thing, and I'm like, are people more open to that than I think? I don't have anything on my profile like that because I like the honorific of daddy. I want someone I call daddy. I like the caretaker dom role, but not the age play side of it.
Oh, quick question with regards to that aftercare. What normally comes in aftercare for a DDLG component?
Oh, really good question. Aftercare, once again, individual to everyone. You got to ask the person beforehand, right? But for a lot of people who, the littles thing, it's a really good question because they might want to be called good girl, both in it and during aftercare. They might want aftercare within the roles and within the dynamic. They might want it after outside of the dynamic, depending on if it's bedroom only. So someone said to you that they're not into punishment. right? And not into physical pain. So they probably wouldn't be into spanking or any corporal punishment. Because of that, the aftercare probably wouldn't need to be very physical on any part of their body. It would much more need to be like, you did a great job, words of affirmation, you'd ask them, and cuddling. I feel like cuddling is always a good aftercare for people who want it. It's just aftercare is one of those things you have to discuss and negotiate too. Like, for example, my version of aftercare is always like, you need to text me the next day. I need to have access to be able to text you the next day, because if I'm dropping, I know the one thing that will calm me down. Dropping meaning when you're in play like that, you can reach subspace and have this elated experience. And then what goes up must come down. I feel sad the next day. I want to be able to talk to the person. You just want to be there because you've provided such a caretaking, supportive role before. It's how can you best be there for them? Honestly, the days after play happens.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that answer is going to apply to every single type of play.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. I just wasn't sure if there was any. Yeah, okay, that's what I figured.
But you also get aftercare and should advocate for that too, because you don't know what it's going to be like afterwards. You might feel, honestly, you might feel gross the next day. I have had DOMs or people in the top position tell me that they feel guilty, disgusting, perverted for what they did or what they were interested in. There can be a cycle of shame, like really enjoying yourself and then feeling ashamed, and aftercare and being assured that it was really enjoyable for everyone can be helpful too.
I get it.
Are you a sleep with someone on the first date type of person?
Yeah, I'm open for it for sure. I mean, it's interesting though, because like there is a part of me, because again, this is the first date I will have gone on in 15 years. I have like two sides to me right now. One, which is like let's fucking go. And the other part of me that is also just like, I'd really like to go have 2 drinks and then just get the fuck out of there and just kind of like ease myself back in. But I'm just gonna completely play it by what's the vibe?
You really like talking to people. I can't imagine you just going on a date for 2 drinks.
Yeah, like let's put it this way. I'm going on a date and hopefully we're gonna have an absolute blast. And wherever the night goes, right? If I sit down with this person and I'm like, oh, this isn't fun, then I'll just, excuse myself after a couple of drinks and just go home.
Yeah.
I think in a good way, I'm not putting any pressure on myself for anything to turn out any which way, right? And I'm kind of curious about your opinion on this. Like, there is a part of me that is assuming, like, okay, I'm meeting this person through Field. There's a different vibe that comes with Field than I think than there does for like Hinge or maybe some of the other apps. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, I don't have enough experience to draw upon, right? I don't have enough data points where I'm like, is there more of an expectation, but like both ways, where it's like, hey, we met on this app. This is what this is. She just told, like, she has her initials up as her profile. And like, she was like, oh my gosh, I forgot to tell you my name, blah, blah, blah. Like in our literal last text after we've been texting for like a week. And I was like, yeah, setting a date without knowing someone's name on Field kind of feels on brand. You know what I mean? So I kind of like, whatever.
You can make up a fake name on there. I assume, are you Zach on there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I gave my full name, address, social security number, just did the whole thing.
Wait, in your head when you were going to text her, we were just like, I'm going to text like CJ or whatever initial she used?
I just figured that wasn't her name. It was just 2 letters. I figured that was her initials.
All right.
I figure everybody on Field was like named like TJ and like LC and I was like, yeah.
I know, but I don't just want their name. I want their astrological chart, which is like I do.
I haven't been on a date in 15 fucking years. You know how happy I was when someone was like, hey, you want to go get a drink? And I was like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. Wait, did she ask you for the drink?
No, I asked. I actually really was thinking about this, where I was like, the dynamics of who's asking who and who's planning and doing all these things are going to be more important on this app than I think in another one. They'd be important anywhere. But especially, in my opinion, like if the Dom sub kind of dynamic exists in a much higher prevalency here, my intuition told me it was important to have certain people asking certain people out. And I even asked her too, like in this thing, I was like, all right, cool. Like, so it sounds like we're going on a date. Like, you ready for a date? She was like, yeah, absolutely. So then I asked her too, I was like, all right, so question, should I start planning? And I asked her, I was like, hey, do you want me to take the lead on making the plans? Or would you prefer if we kind of figured this out together? And I literally said, like, Field can be a particular place. And she was like, oh, no. I do a lot of planning. I'm immensely attracted to a guy who takes the reins. And I was like, done, I got it.
That's a really common request, is for the guy to plan a date and prove that they can. In a world where now everyone's making, like, if men and women are making, they're not making the exact same amount of money, but everyone's in the professional space, you got to set yourself apart somehow. Being the planner is a big deal. So I like that you did that. Again, can't blanket statement it because I won't even go on Bumble because you make the first message or make the first move as a woman. They changed it, I think, but I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I want someone to make the first move with me unless I switch. And sometimes if I see a submissive profile, I'm like, okay, I will make that move. You're spot on. These things matter.
Yeah.
There's no pretending that they don't. I guess for some people it might not, but it does matter. It's the same reason I probably won't go talk to someone in public. Like I won't make the first move, no matter the app. People are going to appreciate that on Hinge, Field, no matter what it is. I actually think people are more open-minded to a very just casual, let's get drinks or coffee on Field without any expectation of it going further. Because that's sort of, it's about vetting the person. It's about getting their vibe. You're doing a vibe check, and I feel that's understood on Field in a way that Hinge, in my experience, can be hit or miss with what people expect from it.
Yeah, because for me, this is a vibe check.
So will you be more likely to seek out someone who wants a DDLG relationship, or are there other kinky relationships you want to explore?
I think out of all the stuff that I've come across so far that I've looked into, more of the DDLG is more up my alley. But I think there would be elements to potentially more of that primal aspect that could be fun. But I don't know if that really falls under like the hardcore kink component of it. And then that's something that I'm very open to exploring, and I think it'd be very fun to explore. Like if I close my eyes and I allow myself to fantasize, there's an easy situation where I would be tying somebody up, where I would be kind of playing that role very much in command of the situation. That I think it could be very fun.
Do you fantasize thinking about these things? Do you think about vanilla sex?
I think it's more vanilla, but what's interesting is like I don't use porn, I don't use any of that stuff, right? For multiple reasons. But what I'll tell you is when I started diving into this and I started fantasizing about more of like the DDLG component of it, I was like, oh, that shit's hot. Like, whoa. And there were a lot of other kind of places my mind went in that sense.
So it's working its way in. Just for context, that's one of the questions I ask when someone tells me they're kinky and we're further along in dating. I will ask them, when you masturbate, what are you watching or what are you thinking about? And for me, if they do not say the kinkier stuff, I just know that we are not going to align in the bedroom.
Yeah.
So this is like, that's my litmus test now too. I'm not against vanilla sex. I just know if I'm only masturbating to kinky thoughts, I need someone who's at that level. And I don't know, my question for myself is, am I open to someone who later in life discovers that?
Where do you fall on that?
I gotta tell you, I am dating actively, and my front runner person is someone who also shares having what I'd consider a fetish or a kink where they will always imagine kinky things. They're not having vanilla fantasies. And for me, meeting and talking to someone who's like that is much more appealing. Like, I think that put that person at the front of the line.
So this is a serious question, right? What if you came across somebody like me, right? In my exact situation where it was like, hey, just get out of this serious relationship, that there's an aspect of this I'm very interested in exploring, but cards on the table, the experience in this world is minimal. No pressure, take it or leave it. Like,
if someone shows genuine curiosity and a willingness to learn, I'm very open to it, okay? Because I don't want to have to teach everything. If they're willing to just teach themselves a lot, and I want to learn about your process of how you've been researching this stuff, I'm willing to go with them on that journey. And one of the things I personally do, and I've talked about this on the podcast, is I will send them videos of things that turn me on, and I'm into this. I jokingly say I will give you a 10-page essay on exactly what I'm into, why I'm into it like this, if they're willing to take it on, right? And if they're willing to engage in it, and the way they're responding to me is from sheer curiosity and not trying to immediately step into that role, any of those things, I will consider them. The moment someone brings out a line like "you do what I say" or tries to be dominant without developing any type of connection first, they're done. So if it sounds like you're curious, I'd be really open to it, even though you have almost no experience, but I would cut it off much faster than maybe someone who is experienced.
yeah, no, that makes sense. I think it makes sense. It's really funny to me that this almost strikes me as like trying to get your first job with like a short resume. You know what I mean?
For me, I'd be like, okay, I'm open to teaching, but you have to go through 3 extra rounds of interviews. If you seem like you suck, I'm cutting you. What research have you done? How have you researched?
Well, primarily just Google. Reddit was a good one. Candidly, I didn't do a ton of research onto this, so I didn't find any like YouTube channels or anything. Also, I know I'm going to talk to you, so
I swear by Reddit because you get people's personal experiences. No one's overthinking it. It's not some essay that you need to read. It's literally like, my girlfriend likes this, and then some like really dirty, in-depth description of what that person likes.
Yeah, let me ask you a Reddit question real quick because the girl I'm going out with on Friday, on her profile she wrote MFM, and I was like, oh, I wonder if that was something that I would experiment with if I would go down that path, right? So then I went on Reddit and was reading kind of just about people's experiences with MFM, and then it turned into like this deep dive on women talking about their experiences getting gangbanged. And like I'm being completely serious. Like in general, how reputable do you think all the stuff that you read on Reddit is? Because some of the stuff that I was reading, I was like, this would not surprise me if this was a guy writing this from a perspective.
I think that a lot of times too, but then especially in the work I do now, I never underestimate or try and prescribe what a man or a woman would have written. I know sometimes it seems like a wild fucking fantasy that would never ever happen, but then you're in a conversation and someone tells you the wildest fucking story and it's sort of like, did you feel safe doing that? But because I'm constantly thinking of safety, I'm just like, how did you know everyone was negative for STIs? Like, why did you feel that this was the group of people to do it with? What vetting did you go through? I ask all of these questions. Sometimes I like the answer, sometimes I don't. It's none of my business. Point is that these are real stories that I hear from the person who orchestrated it. I think a lot of times it is, and I think it's a little bit of society telling you women are one way, men are another, and we internalize that. I never underestimate who can say what, no matter
Yeah.
what their age is or the stories I have heard.
But yeah, Reddit's been an excellent place to learn about this stuff.
So you're a personal trainer. Would you ever consider hiring a sex and relationship coach?
Oh, fuck yeah, of course. The way I look at coaching is you hire coaches to help you gain knowledge and develop skills in areas that you just want to progress in, right?
Yeah.
So one of my current clients right now is a men's dating coach. We've had long conversations about how to put together good profiles. I've read his book. Like I basically just get free coaching when we're in our session, and then he bounces a bunch of stuff off of me as well. But like I think coaching is one of the single most valuable things that you can possibly invest in. I pay a shitload of money to work with different coaches for mobility, and it's not just for my own personal healing, but it's so I can apply it to my clients. So like when it comes to relationship and dating coaches, yeah, like, and again, I have you, right? So that's kind of a cheat code. But I mean, I would hire you in a fucking nanosecond. If I didn't have you as a resource and I met you and I knew you and I was getting into this world, like of course I would. Because it's, especially if you're in my position, right? This is a new world. I am not delved into something where I think I would consider myself a genuine rookie, right? I'm genuinely inexperienced in a long time. And there's feelings of confusion, a little bit of overwhelm, some intimidation that comes with all of this stuff. Like if I'm being honest about it, it's just like, whoa, like this is not my world. I'm curious about this, but I want to make sure that I navigate, especially the initial stages correctly and in a way that's going to allow me, candidly, not to make an ass out of myself. And then two, also to preferably cultivate a great experience for whoever I'm with. I care about that stuff. So yeah, obviously you hire a coach. It's like the best thing you can do.
I agree. And I like my clients who I work with, their kink journey moves so much faster and smoother, and they're able to get more from each other as partners. I think there's a hesitation though, because there's also this thought like, oh, I should just know this stuff.
See, I disagree with that. And I know you're not saying that, but I disagree with that line of thought because how are you supposed to know this stuff, right? And again, and there's also a difference between like going on a Reddit thread and reading it, but then getting to ask your coach and getting to understand the nuances of these things and have somebody to talk this stuff out with and kind of game plan on certain aspects. Like not knowing anything versus going on Reddit, there's a big difference, but there's an exponential difference between just going on Reddit and then actually working with a professional and someone who is deeply experienced. I'm not shamelessly plugging you. You're a fucking former dom. Like you worked in like you know your shit, and this is your world. I think the knowledge that, and again, you're my friend, so I get to ask you this stuff, and then I get to come on your podcast and like do this for free, which is great. But like the amount of knowledge that I can get from one conversation with you is going to outpace. You and I could have a 10-minute conversation, 10 minutes, and I'm going to get more and higher quality information from that 10 minutes than I would be able to get from probably hours and hours of my own independent research.
That's 100% correct. And also like it's the added benefit of the person getting to know you. But I do have sessions where someone just comes to me, they pay for 1 hour because I'll offer that. And they will just come with a list of questions of things that they don't even trust the internet with. Like they don't trust Reddit because they're like, I just want a professional answer that I trust from someone experienced.
Yeah, and I also think for you and for this world too, and this might resonate with some of your listeners a little bit more than maybe somebody in my sense, right? But especially if you're getting into this, and there are aspects where you kind of alluded to before about maybe some shame, about
Yeah.
some deeper areas where you may almost consider like, oh my God, like, am I allowed to think like this? I'm a pretty secure person in myself and some of like where I've allowed my brain to go. And I was having some happy adult dirty thoughts about certain aspects of DDLG, and I was like, all right, cool. And guess what? I'm still perverted. But I can really understand too where as we move into this, and I'll include myself in this because there were aspects of this where it's like, is this appropriate? Am I crossing lines? Is this okay? How do I do this in the right way? Like, is there something wrong with me? And I think the ability, if you're going through that aspect of the journey, to have a coach, another human who is deeply versed in this world that you can talk to about these things, can be really, really, really powerful and important too. For somebody's own personal feelings of like, okay, I'm good. But then also, again, like, how do we navigate certain situations where maybe it is a little bit dicier and you want to explore those areas, but you want to do it in the right way?
That's literally what I do. Exactly. Thank you. You get it without
Yeah,
having
oh,
gone
100%.
through a coach. Well, I feel like our sessions of personal training, we did go through some stuff like this
Fuck
or
yeah.
discussing stuff like this. But it's the fundamentals are the same of like why you would seek out expert help. Same why I went to you.
Those are exactly the same.
You taught me to work out was really tailored to me. I know
Yeah.
where my shortcomings are. And there are things that even then going to big classes like Barry's boot camp or something, I knew how to adjust things because you told me your body doesn't work like that. So you have to fix it this way.
And then there's also that huge aspect, like, especially if you're talking about gym stuff, where it's like just having somebody to help you get comfortable in a gym setting, get out of your own head sometimes, which we all get into it. And like I was even having this discussion with one of my newer clients, and she was like, I know when I go to the gym, I know nobody's looking at me and I should just get out of my head. And I was like, we'll call her Jessica. I was like, Jessica, that's inaccurate. Everybody's looking at you. Like, anybody who thinks that you go to the gym and no one's paying attention to you is completely wrong. Everybody's sizing each other up. Everybody's looking at each other. Everyone's judging each other. That's actually the reality of the gym. So let's just get that out of the way. And then we can figure out like, hey, where do we want to put you in certain aspects of the gym? And we game plan this whole thing where if she goes into the gym on her own, in the beginning, she's just walking on a treadmill until she gets more comfortable. And then when she wants to lift, she goes in like a certain area in the corner where fewer people can see. And the point about this is it's like, these are the types of conversations you get to have with a coach if the coach is a good coach, which you are. And it's like, no, like you get to talk those things through. And I think that mental component of it is huge as well. It's not just the technical aspect, it's the mental component too.
Well, like it comes full circle to how I felt more confident just telling guys like, oh yeah, I worked with a coach. I had a personal trainer. It matters. And it does. That confidence has stayed with me years after. Like you haven't been my personal trainer for 2 or 3 years, but I still do some of the same workouts. I think those are all of my questions that I had for you. I'm really glad to have this answered. Although I always knew you were a dom, just from the things you said, I was like, he definitely is. But I also wasn't going to get into it with you. And now we know.
I'm like upset we didn't get into it because I feel like that was our relationship and we talked about everything else.
I was excited to go through all of these things, especially because we have talked, possibly one of the humans I've talked to most outside of some of the best friends in my life, because we had 3 hours a week to just shoot the shit.
I don't know, man. This whole dating thing was like, I'm so happy on my own, to be honest with you too. And like, that's the other part of it.
That's when you're supposed to be dating though, when you're super happy on your own.
Because I'm just like, I have my own fucking spot. I come home, I do my own thing. I feel great. Like I wake up, I go do work. Work's going well. I got my boys. And I'm just like, honestly, it's just like, I want to get laid. I also do know that like, if I found somebody who I really liked, I would want to spend time with them. But I also don't know how I'm going to fit this into my life. But I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. I think one of the worst things I could possibly do is try to overthink this before I'm in it. Does that make sense?
Yes. That makes total sense. There's a possibility that you also just need to enjoy having your own space for a while. There's a possibility that something could come along. I'm really big on intentional dating. You've identified your need of having sex. That's something you want to do now. That's what you're optimizing for. That's the thing. You optimize for what you're looking for. The reason I always say that is because some people, especially in the kink world, a lot of people are like, oh, I want a dom, I want a dom. And I'm like, do you want that dom to be your partner in life or do you just want them to be a dom? And they hedge their bets. And I'm really against hedging your bets. I'm like, no, if you want your boyfriend or girlfriend to be your dom or your sub or whatever it may be, I'm like, you have to go for it.
And I think that's one of the major reasons why I kind of stopped fucking around on Hinge and I just started messing around on Field a little bit more. And I was like, my intention here, I want to meet somebody who is happy having a casual, sexually based relationship with somebody who is not emotionally or logistically available very often. And I am totally fine if they're fucking other people. I don't want that pressure. I just like, if I can get laid once a week, I'll be thrilled. You know what I mean?
And on that note, thank you for coming on the Kink Consultant. It has been really great talking to you. I appreciate sharing your story so openly. Isn't it crazy that the last time you dated, there weren't multiple apps to choose from? There are apps for every situation now. The person that I just ended it with, we met on an app specifically for kinky dating.
Yeah.
You know, there's no need to live in the in-between anymore.
It makes so much sense. It's great. It makes all this 100 times easier. But yeah, man, it fucking dates me.
I'm 36. I hadn't been on a date since I was 28. But it's kind of fun. Your wits about you and realize like when you're swiping on people, there is another person on the other side of that app, you know, and talking. And I think that's the mind fuck that a lot of us go through, because when you can keep swiping, like, and I don't like doing that to people, but sometimes it's the balance of how overwhelming it is versus my energy. But also, if I get a very thoughtful message, that's what I try and respond to. A hello, I don't have any guilt of not responding to. All right.
All right. Thanks, coach.
Yep.
All right, man. Great talking to you. I'm out of here.
All right. Have a good night. Thanks for coming on. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with anyone who might find it interesting. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover in future episodes, feel free to reach out. Email info@thekinkconsultant.com. Until next time, keep on kinking on.